I think always when something terrible, tragic happens, like a door closing when we didn't want it to, or sometimes opening when we didn't want it to, there's probably an element of relief. And I think rather than feeling shameful about that relief, thinking about it, why is that there? What does that mean? What is that telling me? Because I think we can actually learn a lot.
Welcome to Another Door podcast. Another Door is a place that you come to when you're rethinking your work, whether it's job loss, a career change, or you just want to rethink how you are doing your work right now. Come and find us at anotherdoor.co.uk. On this episode, I'm speaking to Cate Sevilla. Cate and I met a couple of years ago when she had her book out, also with Penguin, and we had a very similar experiences of trying to get a book out into the world when it was locked down and all bookshops were closed. Not an easy experience. However, our books kind of fell together. Hers is all about how to work and not lose your mind, and mine is all about losing your job and not losing your mind. So we had a lot in common. I wanted to ask her on to Another Door to talk about her Another Door moments, of which she has met many. And again, how has she navigated through that messy in-between when a door closes for us and the next one is about to open? So Cate shares her experience of actually maybe she took the initiative to close one of the work doors herself, but is honest in sharing that even that is not always easy. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Please leave a review. Tell us. Here is Cate Sevilla. Cate, welcome to Another Door podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited because I'm having you back on here. I've been greedy. And the last time we spoke was when your book was coming out in hardback. In fact, I had it, so it was already out. So I had it in my hand, and I've gone through it, and I'd highlighted it and post-it noted it and everything, and then I drilled you on it. So this week, I'm not going to do that on this episode. Too much pressure.
Thank you. I have found now, because the hardback came out like 2 years ago, and therefore I wrote it like nearly 3 years ago. There have been times where I've been like, oh, I have to talk about this today, and I've been like on the train with a copy of my own book, like making notes. And because the title, How to Work Without Losing Your Mind, I'm sure anyone looking at me on the train is probably like, wow, she is having a rough go of things right now.
I like that image, though. We're going to talk more about you today with some of that wisdom in there. But Another Door, we want to talk about your Another Door moment and find out about that, which does kind of, I guess, relate to the book. But, you know, we don't have to pressure you to be all full of wisdom and expertise today. Just a beautiful story. So maybe before we do that, a quick intro for those that don't know you, and then we will ask you about your Another Door moment.
Yeah, so I'm Cate Sevilla. You can tell from my voice that I'm not from around these parts. I grew up in California, near Sacramento, and I've been in the UK for about 17 years, I think now. But I still sound very much like this. So I am currently the editor-in-chief of HuffPost UK. I wrote this book, How to Work Without Losing Your Mind, the paperback of which is out now. And it first came out in deep, dark lockdown in January 2021, when no one was really at work and everyone was losing their minds. So it's been an interesting process, this. But, you know, I have worked in I don't even know what you call it anymore, digital publishing, digital media for a very long time now. I think it's about, over 15 years. And, predominantly my career has always just been, online journalism, writing online. I started out blogging, never really had anything written in print until about, 2016. Everything that I'd ever done was online, and I worked for myself for a while. I worked for a blog publishing company in the UK when I kind of first got started here. I've worked at MSN and Google and Buzzfeed, and then now technically I'm back at Buzzfeed again because HuffPost is part of Buzzfeed in the UK, or globally actually. So yeah, it's been as we call it, a squiggly career, as our fellow authors at Penguin Business would call it. But yeah, I'm in a much better place now, I would say, with my work and my career. But it's been a funny old ride, that's for sure.
You had to actually write a book to help you to get to that place.
Yeah, literally.
You've literally written the book on it. And it is, though, your book is like a Bible for survival. So what is the another door moment that we're going to share today?
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite a few. I think, my first one was when I basically lost my contract at said blog publishing company when I first moved to the UK. I was only there for probably a year and had to make a tough decision to kind of go and do my own thing. But I think probably, on reflection, whilst that was a big important fork in the road, which all those another door moments always are, I think probably for me, kind of like in this era of my life, I think the biggest one was when I moved on from Google, and that wasn't so much a you've been fired situation as a I very much left of my own accord, but when you're being managed out, when things are being made very difficult. So while you technically are the one that opened the door and are walking through it, you definitely were walked to the exit and kind of positioned there and made to be really, really uncomfortable and unhappy until you finally reached out and turned the doorknob and walked through. Um,
There is an image. There is an image that I'm guessing a few people will be like, oh, that's what's happening to me right now. I'm being walked to that door. That's really interesting, man. So did you feel that at the time? Or was it kind of being done without you fully aware of what's going on?
I mean, it was one of those situations. So my ego was thrilled when I got there because my goodness, it's Google, and I was technically headhunted for it, and that sounds very grand, doesn't it? And I, particularly when they were like, I think on your induction day, they say something like, 0.1 or 0.0001% of people who apply here get in, or that stat is not correct, but it's something along those lines, or it's harder to get into Harvard than it is to become a Googler. And as someone who didn't go to college, that made me feel very smart. Like, oh God, get me. I was headhunted for here. I belong. Look how smart I am. So it felt really good at first. And then that quickly deteriorated into not feeling so great, because this was a situation where I was, and this is not to speak badly of my colleagues and the people that I worked with. This very much was, I was the wrong shape for this team, essentially. It was a new position. They kind of were going out on a limb to hire somebody with the kind of background that I did that was very different to the folks that I was working with. I wasn't even like an expert it was like arts and culture. And that's like, I'm interested in that, but I couldn't, name you 10 works from Van Gogh then, I could probably recognize them with my eyes, but I couldn't tell you any more information about them, when they were painted, what's the story behind it. And that was the kind of content that I was working in there. So I think I was just I was new and different and scary. And I think what I kind of represented for the industry as a whole and for this team made folks uncomfortable. And I think, I think they tried the best they could with their capacity and, all the other things that are going on for people at work. But ultimately it just didn't work. And I think, I was there for almost 2 years, I think, maybe longer. And it was a really long couple of years, because you kind of know pretty soonish after you start if something isn't right. And I knew it wasn't right. But oh my goodness, to be there in that building, and there's a gym, and you have discounted massages and free food, and it's just a very funny situation to be in when you're like, oh, I don't belong here, but I don't really know what that means if I don't belong here. When they were like, no, we want you to come in here, and then for it to not feel like you thought that it would, can be really disappointing. Really disappointing. So yeah, I was I was aware that it wasn't working, but it took me a really long time to figure out why it wasn't working and that it wasn't my fault or my expertise or the way even I was doing my job. I just simply did not fit with the rest of the team. So there was like a fundamental problem there that wasn't my fault, you know?
By design. But I guess that's where you often hear that people are brought in to bring that difference, to freshen things up, a fresh perspective. They want someone different. In the name of diversity, they bring in diverse thinkers. Let's bring in something new.
Yeah.
And how many times do they want that? You know, and if it doesn't
100%. Yeah, I think I even say in the book, like, if you're told this is a new position and this is a great opportunity for you to put your mark on things, you better be ready for what that actually means. Because what it usually means is we don't know how to do this and we're hoping that you do. And by the way, it's going to be down to you to not only justify why you're here at this company and on this team, but you're going to need to get all of your peers and all of the stakeholders on board with why you and your role exist. Never mind your methodology, never mind like how you do things. Like you're just going to have to justify your existence for a bit. And I'm probably speaking in extremes here, but very much what I was dealing with was to that extreme of like, why are you here? You know?
Because you like to a really lovely party that you realize that you turned up to and you weren't really invited, and you think, oh crap, oh god, they wanted me to actually serve. I wasn't actually invited to attend. It was kind of like that moment.
Yeah. Or you didn't want like funny fancy dress. You wanted like serious, like historic, like to like whatever that historical period. You wanted that, not me dressed as a crab. Okay.
That moment you realize.
Oh, yeah. Exactly that.
Yeah. But how many people were brought in? You see that all the time, don't you, though, on LinkedIn? And then these poor people who've come in to freshen things up, as you say, and I love your take on it. And as I say, you do write quite a lot in the book on how to deal with that and how to navigate it. But it's set that expectation if you're brought in as something different. Yeah. What does that actually mean? It means we don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to blame you anyway, because that's yeah, kind of what you're here for.
Yeah, I think, and unless you have, I mean, even in the role I'm in now, like the kind of makeup of historically, the other people who have been the editor-in-chief of HuffPost UK have had a very, very different background to me and to my skill set. And that was a concern of mine for sure when I was like, why are you even talking to me about this role? Like, why do you want me for this? I'm not this person or that person. So why am I here essentially having this conversation with you? And, I think unless you have a champion and have really honest, frank, transparent conversations in the interview process of why they think that you are the best person for this job and why you should want to bring your kind of different skill set situation, unless you have those conversations, you don't really know. So I had very, very frank conversations with my now manager about why he wanted to hire me. And which might sound like not confident or something, but it really, like, I needed to know, like, I'm not this, so why are we talking, and it's worked out really, really well. And I think you need that. You need to have those uncomfortable, honest conversations. And to actually, if you are different, you need to have somebody who is going to champion that and show you that they really do want that and that the company really is craving that sort of change from you and are going to support you in those decisions. Because otherwise you just have people fighting against you and blaming you for things going wrong,
Yeah. And you're going to be confused. You're going to think, well, you brought me in to do this and I'm trying to do it. And now you're now penalizing me for doing the thing that you brought me in for. Interesting. You said it kind of sounds not confident to ask those questions and challenge an interview. But I do think we're sort of seeing a bit of a shift on interviews. It's not this one-way process anymore. And it should never have been that. It should always be two-way, because it has got to work two ways. It's ridiculous that we almost feel like an interview is a sell because
audition.
Yeah, so exactly. An audition again. We're back to crab. Like, dress up as a crab, perform for someone, stand out, make them remember you for the right things. But yeah, you should ask those questions. You should make sure that it's right for you as well. And if you're being brought into something, like it's such a good example of you thinking, I'm not really understanding like how I fit in.
Yeah.
Ask the question.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, and that's the dynamic is different, right? If you've applied for a job, you're not being like, so why me? That's necessarily, that's not like the kind of cut of the conversation. This was the way that I'm in my job now is just is a very kind of unique situation, where, I was recommended for something, and I fortunately had a hiring manager who really just believed that I was the best person for that role and brought me out of my freelancing situation that I thought I was going to be in for a long time. And I very much was just like, well, I have a plan, so you're kind of interrupting things for me. So can you can you explain why you want me to be doing this? Because I'm not sure, And then after one conversation, I was totally obsessed and would have been completely heartbroken if I didn't get this job. But,
you went from one extreme to the next, like how rude interrupting my plan to how rude you're not even going to give me the job now. I like that.
Yeah. Oh my, that would have been a whole different kind of mental situation to try to process. Like, you came to me and then you decided you didn't even want me,
But I kind of like the idea that you apply for a job, but then you argue. Yeah, but why do you want me? I like that.
But like, well, the recruiter said I was interviewing you, so is probably how that conversation would go. Like, I don't know. You were at the top of the pile that I was given to talk to.
I quite like that, though. I'm going to encourage people to do that. Like,
I mean, honestly,
why not?
Thinking about, just having a conversation, like, instead of this formal, uncomfortable, think about how, like, just cutting to the chase, right? Rather than these terrifying panels. And it's like, yeah, at certain levels, the vibe, of course, is going to be a bit different. And if you're presenting something, the vibe will be different. But, especially those first few conversations, they should really be conversations. So then you're not performing and they're not performing. And you can kind of just see, like, okay, are you actually, are you the best person for this? Even if we don't personally, like, super get along, that doesn't necessarily always matter, right? And so often these people who are doing the interviews aren't even people that are working directly with, especially at, like, really big tech companies and stuff. You don't necessarily, or you're not always being screened by and speaking to the people that you're going to be, working really directly with.
Yeah, that is interesting. But yeah, let's encourage that. Yeah, go to your next interview and ask them why you should take. In fact, people have asked me that before. I have heard that question. Yeah, it's fair enough because I think I don't know.
Yeah, don't know. What are you looking for, and how? Like, my skills are these, and just honestly, like, do we think that fits or whatever? I don't know. Every interview situation is different, but I think feeling like you're not just performing and not just something, and you're having a conversation, because this is going to take up a huge amount of your time, right? That's why work is so important, and it's so important that we feel, mentally well and respected in these situations, because it's a lot of our time.
Yeah, I like that. Good wisdom there. Right. We're going to encourage people to do more of that. So with the another door, so it was a strange moment in time where you walked through it, although that door closed, and you partly closed it yourself.
Yeah.
How did the next part play out? What was there's a messy bit in between to find what happens next?
I think my messy bit came in the form of another job that was messier for different reasons. So I went, and this is nothing that hasn't been, pretty documented on social media and in the press as well. About 4 months after I joined The Pool as their new editor-in-chief. The Pool was an online women's magazine that was founded by Sam Baker and Lauren Laverne. And it was just different in the way that the way that they, like, presented the content. It was meant to be, like, timely and that sort of thing. Anyway, it used to be really popular, and I joined, and 4 months after I joined, nothing to do with how I was running it, by the way. I didn't have anything to do with the business side of things. But the guy that owned it just stopped paying people, because apparently there was no money. And contractors, freelancers, our cleaners for the office that we were in, everyone just and staff just stopped getting paid. And it was a shit show, for lack of a better word. It was really bad. And so many people were furious and hurt and out of money and financially damaged in really significant ways from that. Really messy. So I literally went from like this very messy corporate, my mental health hanging on by a thread, but then I kind of, worked through a lot of stuff and got to the point where I was like, I need to remove myself from the situation. Happened to get this other job, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want to be doing. And then it unraveled very quickly. But I kind of mentally now just kind of treat that job as it opened many little mini doors for me, and just worked as this really uncomfortable transition period of getting me to do something much more creative and what I wanted to do and had been wanting to do for a really long time, but just kept putting off because I was so deeply terrified of doing it, which is writing a book and doing a podcast. So yeah, my messy in between part was publicly losing my job.
You went from the extreme version of that. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it on display to the whole world.
I would like this blasted all over social media. I would like to have every freelance journalist in London furious with me because I'm the only kind of senior manager on social. And I would like this in the news. Please, BBC. Please, The Guardian. Please cover this.
In the name of research for my book, actually.
Yeah. I needed something else. Therapy was getting a little bit boring there for a minute, so we just needed to really spice it up.
Are you looking for somebody to help you rethink your work? Are you looking for somebody who has got something to say, something different? Perhaps you're creating an event, you've got a conference coming up, and you're looking for speakers or workshops that really get people rethinking. Check out our platform with fresh new voices and people who've got something to say. Come and see us at recommended.anotherdoor.co.uk. I think it's an example of, as you say, a door closing in a corporate environment, and you'd had a history of corporate roles. You want something new, and people feel like they need to find the perfect next step. And it is messy. You've got to make all sorts of, not bad choices. I don't think you ever make a bad decision in that space, but you make choices that you might not think, oh God, how is this working out? But you learn so much in that phase. I think that's an extreme example.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I went from Buzzfeed the first time to then going to work for the ex-Top Gear guys. So you could view that as a bad decision, or like just like a really weird one, like a really weird stepping stone to then get to my weird job at Google, to then get me to that weird job at the pool, and then to write this book and eventually be in a much better situation now. But they're all just, really, it's just wild.
Yeah, I need to lose my mind in the most extreme way at work, and then that's how I'm going to create this amazing cool book.
Yeah, the title came to me about 10 years ago, and I just since then was just really working towards losing my mind so I could document it in a book.
And we're laughing, but obviously it's moments of not laughing also.
Of course. We laugh to keep from crying.
Yeah. That's the message, I think, with these Another Door stories. People are going through all sorts. There's all sorts going on out there, and it's horrible and it's quite toxic. And I do know that quite a lot of audience now, because of the messages I get, they're just hating their job. They're hating their work and they feel stuck. So these messages, I guess, like the storytelling that we're doing on these podcasts are about that. It's about, look, don't worry, you're not alone. Like, messiness is all around us. Really don't feel like it's a personal thing. You never know what's around the corner. It could be something amazing. It could be something even messier. But you've got it. You've got things that you can take from it. You've got things you can learn from. And as you say, it's stepping stones. What would you kind of say to people that are listening in that kind of space of shit? I would love a door closed right now, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's like taking a step back and kind of checking in with yourself. I think I was doing a different interview about the book, and I think someone was surprised that in the book I talk about, doing a 5-year plan, because that's, I guess, really old fashioned now. And I was like, well, if you're just kind of floating in the abyss and you're either really angry or just not doing well with whatever kind of situation you're in work wise, and that has knock on effects, as we know, to your body, to all your relationships and everything else, is to kind of think about, okay, well, what am I doing? Think about, where do I actually want to be in 5 years? And I talk about this like kind of morbid obituary exercise, if you were to have your obituary written right now, what would it say? And how would you feel about that? And I think, because that's what we're kind of dealing with, right? Like, we have one life. What are we doing with that? And thinking about, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? Thinking about that for me when I was 32 changed the trajectory of my life. And because it was some lunatic in the room was like, oh my God, I just realized that what I want to do in 5 years, like, I need to be working on that like right now. And I wanted to punch that person in the face, because I was like, yeah, you're absolutely correct. God, that's terrifying. And I had to like make some real kind of decisions about what I was doing. So I think, if you're having a really bad time, I think, think really, honestly about what you want, what you're doing, and where you want to be, and what can you be doing kind of right now, to just little tiny baby steps to kind of get you to that place.
And is that what you've done now? And that's where you're at? So did you?
Yeah. So I hit my kind of 37 5-year plan. I kind of ticked off a lot of that. I ticked off all of that by the time I was 37. And it kind of freaked me out a bit, because then I was like, well, now what? Because then I knew I had done enough therapy to know it wasn't about ticking those things off. It was about so many other things, right? But I've now had to kind of think about a 2-year plan, because a 5-year plan is not quite feasible when you have a small child who is just, there's this, you can't predict or know what's going to happen when you have kids. So I'm like, a 2-year plan, I think, is much more suitable to me at this place and time. But yeah, it was a bit overwhelming to be like, well, shit, I made huge changes in my life over the last 5 years. Do I have to do that again? Like, do they all have to be that big? And then I was like, well, they don't have to be that big, but, it also doesn't mean you don't do nothing. Like, then what are you working towards? What's your motivations and all that? So, we're always learning. We're always learning.
I like that, though. 2-year feels good. And it doesn't always have to be big scary goals. It doesn't have to be write a book. It could be just feel better. It could be as simple as that. Like, you talk a lot about that in the book, about it doesn't always have to be change the world. It could be just change you, that you just feeling a bit better about things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd like to not cry every day on my the office, little things.
I like that. Yeah, I definitely can't do a 5-year plan. I mean, I'm 50 next year, and that's making.
Are you?
Yeah, so I'm just working in 2 months. I've just got 2 months.
So
plan.
Exciting, though.
It's not exciting, is it?
Yes, it is. Congratulations, Ben.
I think it's horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
I know, probably feels horrendous, but honestly, what a privilege. What a privilege. What a life, man. That's great.
So yeah, I've definitely reduced to 2 months. I'm going to do 2-month plans, just, and then it kind of like keeps that big milestone away as long as possible. But anyway, we'll go for that. But I like that, small plans that push you. I like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So we are here now. You're in a space of not losing your mind, because you've written the book now. So you have to practice what you preach.
You do. Especially but honestly, it was a weird thing for me to be like, because everyone knows I wrote this book now, and I talk a lot about management. So, and I'm going to be managing a sizable team. So there's that, what a unique situation to be in, really, to have poured out all of your thoughts on managing and work, and then to be employed again, which is something I didn't necessarily think would happen.
And they're all sitting there looking at you, reading your book, going, well, you didn't say that. You're not.
I said to them, I was like, honestly, if you've read my book and I've said something and you don't think I'm following through with it, please pull me up on it. I'm not so narcissistic to think that you're all like oh gosh, just reading my book at the weekend. But, like if you have and you think I'm full of it, please say.
And has anybody done that?
No. Weirdly, I don't think any working situation is comfortable enough for someone to pull you up on something.
Excuse me. Chapter 2, you said this.
In line 53 here on this. Yeah, that hasn't happened. But I do. In a way, I like having it out in the world, and I like.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
holding myself to account, even if people don't want to necessarily do that.
Yeah, I like that. It's part of psychological safety, though, to invite that and to say we're all humans, actually. So I might be getting some of this wrong.
Yeah, I will be getting things wrong. So you tell me to which degree I'm getting it wrong.
Yeah. So another door. All sorts of things go on in the messy between, as we said, and then you open this new door where you're at now. But what I like to hear as we close our chat is, was there a book or something that you kind of went to as you were navigating your kind of messy in-between space in between that really helped you?
Yeah, there was a book, there is a book called Weird in a World That's Not, and it's written by a woman called Jennifer Romolini. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But honestly, that book, I used to hide in these like spaces in the massive Google office and read that book. And it's just really kind of all about being other, and in the world, really, being comfortable with that and finding your own spaces and connecting with other people who are the same. I think I bought a book. I think I bought copies of that book for like at least 5 other people that I knew or had worked with. I think I bought one for my mom and my sister even. Like it really, really resonated with me. And it really inspired me to write my book because I was like, well, if that book did that for me, like I want to be able to help, just not the CEOs, not the girl bosses at the time. It was like, I just want to just help like your average person at work who's having a difficult time get through it.
Oh, I love that. What was the title again? Let's repeat.
Weird in a World That's Not.
Weird in a World That's Not. Oh, okay. That's going to go on my book list. Another book for the book list. That sounds good.
Yeah.
And often we revert to music or sound to help us through these messy times. Do you have a soundtrack that you...
Yeah, I think that kind of era of kind of coping in Google and getting myself out was very much the album Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves, which I just that album has seen me through so many different things over the last few years it's been out. But I loved that. And then podcasts actually just completely have saved me time and again. And my favorite podcast is Armchair Expert, hosted by Dak Shepard and Monica Padman. And their voices again in the last like 5 years have just carried me through so many different things. But I really got into that after I lost my job at the pool.
I like that. And as you say, there's something like really comforting to go to familiar voices now. Podcasts are the kind of comfort where you listen and think, they're my friends, they're going to say something that's going to really help. I love that. I've only listened to one Armchair Expert, so I might go back and revisit that one. Yeah. Good fun. Okay, and the final bit of advice for people. So someone's listening today and they've been kind of nodding or grimacing as we're sharing the story. What's your advice for them?
I think, because I was thinking about this question and I was kind of like writing a bit and I realized I was like, I think always when something terrible, tragic happens, like a door closing when we didn't want it to, or sometimes opening when we didn't want it to, there's probably an element of relief. And I think rather than feeling shameful about that relief, thinking about it, why is that there? What does that mean? What is that telling me? Because I think we can actually learn a lot about that kind of little shades of relief there that can kind of give us an indicator to how we might actually be feeling.
Oh, I like that. And sometimes it's covered up in all sorts of other stuff. So we need to find the relief, but it could be there. Interesting. Love that. Thank you so much, Cate. If people want to get in touch and find your book and find your work, where are you? Where's the best place?
Yeah, so the book is online pretty much all good bookshops, as they say. It's on Audible if audiobooks are more your thing, and it's an ebook is available as well on Kindle. And as far as social media, I'm very boring on Instagram, but I'm at Cate Sevilla and on Twitter as well. Probably also a bit boring, but that's where I am.
Did you read your own book? Is it your voice?
It is. I read that. I reported that in lockdown when I was 6 months pregnant at home, not in a fancy studio. So that was an experience in itself. But yeah.
It can really be with Cate in her living room as she shares her wisdom.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Are you looking for somebody to help you rethink your work? Are you looking for somebody who has got something to say, something different? Perhaps you're creating an event, you've got a conference coming up, and you're looking for speakers or workshops that really get people rethinking. Check out our platform with fresh new voices and people who've got something to say. Come and see us at recommended.anotherdoor.co.uk. Love this podcast? Give us a 5-star review or rate us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.